Hello, I'm Janice Berkebile. I'm here today to share with you my free class, the Dino Bone link. It's back to basics with this link. It is strong, beautiful, and attractive, and good for earrings, bracelets, and necklaces. Today we're going to work on the Dino link. As you can see here, I have two samples. One's a work in progress, and one is a completed necklace. The first one is made of sterling silver, and I'll raise that up so you can see it closer. It is connected with jump rings. I use 3 jump rings because when you use one jump ring, the two ends of the links tend to overlap and it becomes stiff. You want to have it be fluid, so use 3 jump rings in there. And the next one is the copper sample, and I've connected it using trade beads. Get it so you can see it there. And using just a basic wire wrap. You can go to Beaducation.com to get the free wire wrap lesson. And on this sample, I've also used a handmade clasp, and I used a lampwork bead there that I felt complemented these beads, but you can use any clasp that you like. Going back to the sterling sample, we're going to talk about the jump rings. The jump rings that I have used are 16 gauge 4mm inner diameter. I like that size because there's some movement inside the hole there. That hole allows a 14 gauge to go through it with a little bit of wiggle room. But these are 16 gauge and it allows movement. If there's, what I don't want you to do is use something any smaller than 18 gauge. They have to be strong, and it goes with the boldness of the link. Instead of jump rings for this copper one, I used a basic wire wrap and a trade bead. For today's project, we're going to use a line of tools. The first in the line is a steel block that will support the metal we're pounding on. The next is a pounding pad that supports the steel block and deadens the noise. The next is a 6-inch metal ruler, a black Sharpie, a Fat Daddy flush cutter, a frets chasing hammer, a 1.80mm hole punch, and a salon board. Now we're going to cover the materials needed for this project. Each link needs 3/4 of an inch, and here I have a length of sterling silver 12 gauge wire and some 3/4 inch lengths in copper and in sterling. Also, I have here are some 18 gauge jump rings with a 5mm inner diameter. The first step we want to do is flush cut the wire. So I'm going to take a length of sterling silver, this is 12 gauge, and place the Fat Daddy flush cutter at the very end of the wire to cut off that burr, covering the end so that it doesn't fly into anybody's eye, and save that for later. Then I'm going to measure 3/4 of an inch on this ruler. When you go to cut your wire, understand your ruler. Some of the rulers have an extra 1/8 inch of nothing at the end, and this one is a flush to the end. So pay attention to your ruler and take the flush cutter up to the 3/4 of an inch. And once I'm there, I'm going to scoot that into the flush cutter and hold on to both ends there. When I am cutting wire for production, I'm going to put the ruler to the side now that I have one to measure to, and go to the end again, trim off that burr, always capturing that little bit there. And now I'm going to measure to these, which is going to get me a more consistent result than cutting to the ruler each time. It's a little bit easier too. Cut as many pieces as you need for the project that you have in mind. The next step is to hammer the link. We're going to use the steel bench block to hammer on. It will support the wire. An acrylic block or a wood block will not do for this. Then we'll have the pounding pad, and I'm going to be using a chasing hammer. There's several chasing hammers out there these days. My personal favorite is the frets hammer. I use it because the head is to scale to the work that I'm doing today. The face on this one is a little bit larger, so I choose the frets. Now we're going to take the very end of this wire, and we're going to focus on the center of the chasing hammer and the very end of the wire. I'm going to place it on the block and I'm going to hold it there with my fingers. This is another good reason to use the frets chasing hammers, because you don't have the propensity to hit your fingers. I'm going to start on the very end of the wire and I'm going to pound. It's going to take several strikes to get this to move the metal as much as I want it to go. Here we go. As you can see, the metal is starting to move and it's starting to form a round paddle shape. Maybe you can see it better this way. And I still have a ways to go. If the wire has a tendency to flare out, you can take it and flip it over and then pound it out, and it will help to bring it back to center. Has a little bit of a dog leg. It's going to be kind of cute and special. Then I'm going to take this and flip it 180 degrees so that the holes on either side are facing in opposite directions. And then start pounding on the second side. Flip that one over. What I'm trying to get here is a large surface area so that when I go in to punch a hole, there's no danger of hitting the edge of the piece. So let's look at this up close a little bit. What you still see here is a little bit of the roundness of the metal, and I want to take that planishing hammer or the chasing hammer and right up there a little bit and smooth it out. So I'm going to take that. Just a little bit, not too much. And then on the second side. Oh, not with that side. Okay, now that we have hammered out the paddle here, we're going to file it with a salon board. I choose a salon board because there's a lot of give here rather than a file, and what it does is smooth off the edges if there's any sharp points. We can't have sharp points in jewelry, otherwise we won't wear it. So bring this all the way around and make sure to kind of bevel it on the top and the bottom. Get off any points. Make sure to do both sides. Now see that little point there? Not so in love with that. There we go. And then around to the second side. Just to get that smooth. The next step is to punch a hole. You can choose to use a Sharpie to provide a target. Put that right in there so it won't be on the edge. And I'm going to take the 1.80 hole punch. It allows 14 gauge to go through it with just a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to take that and press it right on there so I don't go off the edge. And down you go. And wiggle that off. Sometimes there's a little bit of a burr at the end, in which case I will take this and tap on the end to smooth it back off. There we go. And then the other side. Sharpie and hole punch. Wiggle that off, go slow with those guys. And there you are. So that's all there is to it. You can choose how to assemble these, whichever way you want, using jump rings or your wire.